Welcome to episode 26 of the Fashion Feed with Amy Fettis, and she is the owner of the UK factory Studio 54. Amy and I met through a mutual client, Amelia at Fettis, so thank you, Amelia. And Amy and I were meant to meet in person at the Make It British conference, which was sadly postponed due to the virus, so we recorded on Zoom instead. Amy operates Aim at Athleisure Limited, which is in its fourth financial year alongside her sampling studio, Studio 54. After launching her own business, she realised the gap in the market, how hard it is to get your product from paper into production, and decided to create her own sample room in the UK. Amy has a background in project management, which has some great transferable skills into production and running a sampling facility, as there's so many different stages to bring together all at once. In this episode, we discuss how Amy launched her own sampling studio in the UK, why testing proof of concept is so underrated, tips on working with investors, and how her processes work in small batch production. So, hello Amy, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
Oh, of course, yes. It was actually one of our mutual clients that introduced us, which we should give her a little shout out, Amelia at Fettis. Who I think she just found you on Google, so you're obviously doing something right with your SEO.
Yeah, I'm very grateful, and it's a really interesting project to be a part of what Amelia is creating. So I think she's got a real niche with gender neutral and completely on trend. She's well researched, so I'm excited to see how that one turns out.
Yeah, and so let's backpedal slightly, and do you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do?
Yeah, certainly. So I operate a business called Aim Athleisure Limited, and that is a brand of clothing, which is all, as it sounds, athleisure, so sports and casual. This is my fourth financial year, and as a part of developing that brand, it's also given me the opportunity to create a sample room, and we now provide our services on a third-party white label basis for people who are going on the same brand development journey that I took, and I'm able to guide them through that process from having a concept for the sort of product that they would like to create. Sorry, I should clarify the type of clothing product that they would like to create, right from a sketch or an inspiration image, even just sometimes I get screenshots from Instagram and such like of starting to build a brief of the type of product that they would like to create. And then I practically guide them through that process, taking the sketch and turning it into a toile, which is a first draft.
I was going to say, what's a toile? Yeah.
Well, yeah, so a toile is a very basic sample. It won't have any trim. It's usually not made up in the correct fabric. It's an indicative fabric of what the client would like to use. It's really just used as a guide on aesthetic and fit, and it's done in a cheaper fabric so that you're not wasting nice trim and material. And then from the toile, we progress and we make a first sample for the client, which they can fit. And that one's all about the fit. And it's usually made in the right fabric so you can start to feel how it's going to perform and how it's going to look. And then we progress to a second sample. And ideally, that second sample should be a final sample. So it should include all the labeling, all the branding. It should be of a good enough standard to photograph so it can be promoted via various marketing channels and really gather, interest and sales and orders and momentum for the brand ahead of the launch.
Amazing. And so how did you get to let's go in stages? So you actually had a career in project management, didn't you? And
yes,
how long did you do that for?
So in my mid-20s, I decided to do a higher level apprenticeship in leadership and management, and that also came with the chartered manager status and skills. And so I spent the latter part of my 20s in project management. So I would do work for people with businesses, and I would affect some kind of change, or I would build a new line of revenue for them. Anything really that was away from the normal activity of the day-to-day running of the business, I would go in on a project basis and get it going for them. And I saw an opportunity in 2014 off the back of the Olympics, which had been really successful in London in 2012. I could see that athleisure was starting to boom. I could see that people were changing the way that they were dressing. So you and I today, I'm sure, we're working, but I'm wearing leggings and a sweatshirt, and that shift had started to happen away from kind of a differentiation of formal attire, gym attire, going out attire. It was all sort of blurring into one, and I think it also coincided with the rise of the selfie generation. So people were suddenly very conscious of what they were wearing at all times, because they didn't want to be seen on their social accounts being photographed in the same clothing over and over again. And suddenly it just wasn't acceptable to be going to the gym in like a rubbish old t-shirt and,
Yeah.
and scruffy bottoms. And so I could see this gap in the market, and I thought, well, with the skills that I have, I'm good at business development, I'm good at making relationships, I'm good at identifying niches and filling them. So I thought, I'm sure I can source some product from the Far East at this time, which is aesthetically pleasing, that has the stretch performance that I'm looking for, but that just doesn't have the Nike and Lululemon and Sweaty Betty price tag, because they were kind of the main players in the game at that time.
Right.
And so that set me off on that journey, really. And so I never intended to have a brand. I never intended to operate a sample room. I just thought, I'm sure that I can serve people because I want this product. And my sister, who's a big gym bunny, she wanted this product. So I just set out to find it. And that's how the journey began, really.
Yeah. And so what did those first few days or weeks look like when you were setting up the brand? Like, I know a lot of clients, and I'm sure you find the same, struggle with fabric sourcing, and where did you go to look for those kind of things?
So I really struggled because I don't have any industry background, so I was literally starting from scratch. I had huge hurdles to overcome because I just couldn't find a factory that wanted to take on the work, because I was quite keen to keep it UK centric. I didn't have the time, the budget, the knowledge, the contacts to start offshoring. And so I wanted to try and keep as much control as I could. So I started visiting factories in the UK and suppliers in the UK. But I had very limited knowledge. I didn't know the terminology. I had a lot of product development work to do. To be honest, I think my naivety was probably a blessing at that stage. Otherwise, I would have been just completely overwhelmed. And so I kept getting the door closed in my face because of the amount of product development work that I had to do. And so I kind of reverted back to my skills, and I thought, right, how do I work this problem? And so I went and borrowed some money and got the equipment that I needed and hired some expertise. And I had an amazing team of all first class honours graduates that had come from Northumbria and I think Sunderland, which are two really prestigious universities in my area. And they helped to guide me, and we just set about it ourselves basically, and controlled the aspects that we could control, which was bottling, sampling, and making some product. And then what I realised was that I just needed to make that in a small quantity to get going, to get some sales under my belt, because I wasn't going to be able to borrow any more money or raise any investment without showing that there was a clear demand for the product that I needed. So I just took it stage by stage and did what I could with what I had, rather than trying to do everything at once, which is what I'd started at the beginning. I had a 32-piece collection, and I quite quickly realised that I needed to narrow that right down to minimal viable product, which for me was my core collection, because I'd realised that there was an opportunity as well in the trade. So just as I was directing my product towards consumers who I felt needed this athleisure look, I was getting a lot of gym owners, personal trainers, yoga studios saying, well, actually, we're looking for product of this nature as well that we can customize for our clients and our followers and our students and our members. And so I said, right, to my team, I said, we need to just bring this right back down now. Let's just focus on our core collection. I can monetize that, I can make some sales, and then we can grow. And so yeah, that's how I did it. Basically, simplify to amplify is one of my mottos, and that's what I try and guide my clients to do now as well.
Yeah, I was like just going to write a note there about coming back to what you said about using the skills that you have, because I think some people actually really overlook that and go, oh, I don't know anything about the industry, but really it's not that relevant sometimes, like, because you can learn it. That's one of the reasons why I started putting out loads of information, even doing a podcast like this, telling people the process that you have to go through. But there's loads of other skills that do come into play when you're trying to start a brand, because what you're actually just trying to do is start a business. And like you say, something that's really important is finding a gap in the market, playing to your strengths and testing like proof of concept. And I know that's something that we bonded over very quickly when we first met, is that people just plow so much money into stock before they've even tested the market. And would you say that's something that people like, that worries you, I guess, when clients are coming to you now, that they just want to buy too much before they even know if it's going to work?
It absolutely is, and you're totally correct in that you have to rely on your life experience, your common sense, and just because you are starting a fashion business or a brand, it doesn't mean that the normal rules of trade go out of the window. And you know, I always equate it to any other business, because I think the fashion industry is a little bit different, that in the last 20 years with offshoring, there has become this norm of buying a lot of stock. You know, to get a good unit price, you buy a huge minimum order quantity. And I just don't think that that is right, because I can't think of any other business that would buy a huge amount of product without testing to make sure that there's an audience and that there's a market and that there's a customer there. And at the end of the day, cash is king. So you need sales. And no matter how vast your startup capital is, and I've yet to find someone who's got unlimited startup capital, if you're out there, then tell me how. But you know, you have to make sure that you're seeing a return on the money that you're spending. And I 100% you know, understand that there has to be investment up front. You know, I've gone through that process myself, way beyond what I ever anticipated that I would invest to get the business off the ground and get it moving. But I've also now got the benefit of hindsight, and I've been through raising money from banks. I've been through working with venture capital funds. I've been through working with angel investors. And the one thing that they want to know is who wants to buy this product. You know, they need to see that the demand is there. So that money that you're about to spend on stock, spend it on growing your Instagram, spend it on PR, spend it on focus groups, and spend it on a website which is correctly optimized for SEO, spend it on some paid advertising. Just, you know, please make sure that you're demonstrating some traction, because once you go beyond initial concept, you're in no man's land. So it's very easy to gain support for your business when it's still at a conceptual stage, because you can sell the vision, you can sell yourself, you can sell the team, you can sell what pain you're going to solve for your consumer. But the minute that you get that product in your hands, and the minute that you go into the sales phase, all you're going to be judged on is how many you've sold, or how many people you've got on your mailing list, or what your level of engagement is on social media. That people are going to want to see metrics. So you have to be so careful when you cross that line, because if you do know that to grow your business, you're going to need to raise money, whether that be through crowdfunding, whether that be through angels, bank, the family, whoever, you are going to need to prove and demonstrate that there is an audience for this product. So yes, it's a fine balance. You need the stock and you need the product. Definitely you do, because you can't build a business without it. That's what you're going to monetize. But equally, you have to make sure that there's someone there waiting to buy it from you as well. So if you invest way too much on one side with the product, you can't do the other. And equally, if you go way too hard on building the audience, you aren't going to have anything to actually deliver to them. So you have to have a really fine balance. You have to find that fine balance of the two.
And sometimes it is that you've got to just go for it and find out what the balance is, and just make sure you're learning from it all the time. So, you're obviously, all retailers buy too much stock of something that doesn't sell, but just make sure that you're learning from it. And it's like, okay, that's not moving as quickly as I thought. Let's try and manipulate it into something else. Can I over dye it? Can I embroider on top of it? Can I add value? Like,
Absolutely.
and just make, well, it's called trading, isn't it? So just keep trading your stock in any way that you know. Try not to fall into the trap of, I mean, this is a whole other topic really, is like, try not to fall into the trap of discounting everything all the time, because then your customer will just expect that. Just try loads of different offers on the stock side of things, and then, like you say, try loads of different things on the marketing. And I think sometimes clients are saying, oh, nobody's really like engaging with me, or nobody's buying anything, and it's because they've not pushed the marketing side as hard as you think you need to, and just saying the same thing over and over and over again in lots of different ways. And I think it is a little bit annoying advice from me, I guess, is that when you're trying to find that balance, you just got to go for it and find it as you go.
And don't be afraid to be sold out. I always say this to people, like, you don't need to be really well stocked all of the time. Like I'm sorry to quote this, but like, look at the Kardashians, with Skims or Kylie Skin or Kylie Beauty, sold out all of the time. But actually that really plays to their favor, because it drives such huge demand, because people take notice and they go, oh my goodness,
what is this?
If this product is like never available, it must be amazing. So I say to my clients, and this is why I my model exists the way that it does, where we develop the product and you have control of that. So you own all your patents, you own all of your IP, and you photograph it and you promote it, and then we just make you a very, very small batch. I'm not talking a lot, I'm talking between 2 and 50, just enough that you can send it to influencers, that you can get it onto your family, that you can make your first sales, that you can be wearing it yourself, get some social proof going. And if you get that, if they really run and they go, and then you've got to order some more, that is not a bad position to be in, because if you can then start generating content around being sold out and then count down to it coming back again, and it raises that demand. So yeah, I find the obsession in this industry with stock just mad, and I think now with trends for conscious consumerism and sustainability and ethical manufacturing, that we unless you are huge, like Kardashian style, or retail where you've got a need to fill your shelves, just don't do it. Make sure that you're building your audience and building your sales first.
And would you say is that something that you fell into the trap of when you started your brand, or did you know that right from the beginning? Like, what kind of hurdles did you have to jump when you were starting out?
Oh, I tried to do it. I was approaching big factories and trying to get onto production lines, and looking at minimum order quantities. I didn't know any different, and it was only through my hand being forced of hiring a team and getting the equipment and doing it in really small batch, because that was all I could manage. That I started to like reevaluate and kind of stop myself and thought, what are you doing? Like that it makes no sense. And just and I think as well, because I started to get a bit of a name for myself by having the machines and actually making the product. People literally kept crossing my doorstep with horror stories, and they were coming to me, and I've had joggers that have arrived 3 months late from a factory overseas, where all of the cuffs were were sewn on against the stretch. So this client arrived and said, help me, I can't sell any of these products, I've been waiting for 3 months, I need to make sales. And we had to cut down the largest sizes to make new cuffs to sew on so that he could sell the product. And I see that pattern repeating over and over again, and it made no sense to me with my kind of project management. like hat on, my business hat on of making money, I couldn't see why you would invest in something which could be a liability effectively.
Yeah. And so with your project management skills, how would you say that they have benefited you with the production line? Because I say to people, building a fashion brand is very similar to either making a roast dinner or building a house, and just making sure that everything comes together at one time. And that's basically what project management is as well, isn't it? It's like, put the carrots on, but don't put this on, and put this on first. And there's so many elements that come together. And when you were saying earlier about the naivety actually playing a really big part, I totally agree. But sometimes, like, could you tell us what the process is for production, so people understand?
Of course. Well, I mean, before I go into that, I just want to say that, you know, it's constantly evolving, and I'm fourth financial year of my business. It's still messy, you know, like it's just, and I think you have to let go of perfection, because if you are if you're striving for perfection, you won't get over the starting line. So I just read a book recently which was titled, I don't want to swear on your podcast, but
no, go for it, everyone swears on it.
It's called First Shit Version by Lisa Bean, and I'd highly recommend it. And she basically just says, just start, you know, just put it out there, and your first product isn't going to be your best work, your second product isn't going to be your best work, but you know, you start, you adapt, you evolve, you listen to your audience, you change, you see trends change, you change, you know, and what you're offering evolves. And I do it every day. I find a little bit of time in my day to just write in my notebook, you know, is this working? Can we serve better? Like, what documentation do I need? Every Wednesday, me and the team meet, and every Monday morning we have kind of right, this happened at the end of last week, you know, and Wednesday, and I'm constantly asking them, what do you need? What documentation? You know, what's going to make life easier? What's going to make things smoother? So I think, first of all, before I go into this, because I don't want anyone to think for 1 second that I have things together, because, you know, it's just, you don't, but you just have to find a piece with that in order to just move on. So in terms of production, the you know, what my role is, obviously, like project manager, so I look after the clients, and then I look after the progression of their project. So I have the initial call with them, which is a Zoom call or a meeting in person if we're close enough to each other to do that. That gives me a brief, and then I brief my developers on what we're actually going to make for the client and give them as much information as I physically can. So sometimes we have tech packs, but we've had this discussion before. Tech packs aren't like they aren't essential. So if your startup capital only extends to doing CAD drawings or technical drawings, just do it. Don't worry about tech packs, because you know you don't have to have tech packs to be able to start your project. So I give the brief to the developer, and then they start to work on the 12. So I always have stock fabrics in Studio 54, and they choose what they think is most appropriate. And throughout each stage, I'm just always around. I'll snap little pictures for the client so they can see what's going on and share that. I share that via my Instagram feed as well, so people can get an insight into how we work. And then when the 12s go out, then obviously I take the feedback from the client and act in the adjustments with the developer from there. And then the developer will make the adjustments to the pattern. Hopefully by now we'll have received fabric from the client, so we can make up the first sample. So we'll make that up as well to the best of our abilities. Again, we'll probably at this stage be using kind of standard thread colours. There'll probably be no labelling. But like you say, it's a bit of a how do I describe it? Like, what's my role in that? You know, I have to make sure that we have all of the elements assembled for the developer to be able to progress that stage. So a lot of my time is emails, messages to clients, just reminding them, prompting them, telling them that we need X, Y, Z. And then the first sample will go out to the client. And at that stage, again, I'll either try and do a fitting in person, ideally a fitting at first sample first sample stage in person is what I like to do, because then we can really see the garment, we can draw on it. It's just a much more effective way of making the changes. But if we have to, we can do it via photograph or video or Zoom calls so that we can see the product in 3D. And then we'll progress on to the second sample. So at that stage, I write a scope of work. So I write all of the amendments into a document so that my clients can make sure that nothing's been missed and we know who's responsible for what action. So I'll put on there, let's go to Amelia, just because we've mentioned it. So I'll put, AH, Amelia Harris, you need to send us your care labels. You need to decide what thread colour you want us to use on this. So they'll have their action points, we'll have our action points, which might be things like, let me think of what might be our responsibility at that stage. Things like send out swatch pack for certain supplier, or we just make sure that document is very clear at that first sample stage, so everyone knows what they need to do. And then from there we'll go to second sample, and again I do my same job of just, right, is everything here? And we keep each client project separate in the sample room, so they all have their own like paper bag, which we keep in their development patterns, we keep in any fabric or any trim that they've sent us, and then that's really easy to maneuver, so we can move that around the sample room to whichever stage it's going through. And also, because my team are all able to work from home, sometimes they might need to take things away with them as well, like the patterns to just work on. So again, I do the same job, make sure everything's assembled that we need to make that second sample. Sometimes I'm also making decisions kind of on the hop for clients as well, which if we try and do something which has been specified but just isn't physically possible, like the size of a branding or position of a label, I'll make a decision, and I use WhatsApp a lot. So if I need an instant response from the client, I'll send them a picture, send them a note, and just say, look, I think this is what we need to do. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
And then we'll get that second sample out to them, looking as close to production ready as we can physically get. And a lot of that is client dependent, because they need to make the decisions and they need to supply us with what we need to be able to do that.
You find that some people are a bit concerned about like making decisions?
Yeah, and
a bit nervous.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's what I'm there for. So our service is very much the practical side. I try and give them a little bit of guidance around the marketing and such like, but I think that that's something that you are very, very good at in terms of the strategy. I'm very much there on the practical, and I think that I do tend to, if I feel like a client is making a decision that I don't feel is beneficial, then I will try and guide them, but without kind of steamrolling. But just with the benefit of going through this process, there's just a lot of things that I've picked up, like don't put vinyl on waistbands because it's going to get it's going to be the most stretched part of the garment. Flat lock your seams if you've got leggings, because you're going to get better performance on that. And I know overlocking might look better, or Nike might do a decorative cover stitch, but ultimately a flat lock, if you really want this product to perform, is what you need. So I think that's one thing that we are able to really help our clients with, that we're not just a faceless or an anonymous factory. I'm actually there to help and guide them, and I'll not make the decisions for them, but I will definitely guide them on what I think is best for them and their project.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Was there anything else after that you wanted to say?
Just that when we finish the process, we put a spec sheet in place as well. So once the final sample has gone out and it's been fitted and any adjustments have been made to the pattern, because we don't, unless the client specifically wants to sample again, it wouldn't be protocol to sample for a third time. But there might be very minor adjustments, like just narrowing or tapering an ankle or something like that. Something that can just be made to the pattern without needing to sample again. So once that's all been done, then we put a spec sheet in place, and that spec sheet just finalizes the fabric, the trim, where branding should be placed. It's got a little drawing of the garment. It's basically the third part. So the three things that the client ends up with is the finished sample, their pattern, and their spec sheet, and that is a pack that they can take to any factory and basically tell them what it is that they would like them to make, without all of the toing and froing and the months that go by of trying to get it right. And it also as well just means that if you do get something delivered that you're not 100% happy with, there's no discrepancy, because you can say, well, look, this is what I gave you, this is what I asked you to make for me. So that's how our process works.
On that, I think that's something that I really try and get across to clients, is when they are going into production, just having a perfect, or as close to perfect, like you say, sample, having a date on it and saying everything is as per sample dated, like 17th of March, say, and thread colour as per sample dated this, fabric weight as per sample dated, measurements as per sample dated, like as per sample dated is very, very important, just to be, like you say, that you don't want to get to the end of production and it looks different, but you haven't necessarily completely specified, like it's to the point of patronizing slightly the factory, of being like, every single detail needs to be exactly as per this, because I think some people are like, oh, they'll get it, and they assume that the factory knows what they want, and it's like, just to please don't assume anything when it comes to production.
Yeah, definitely, totally agree, because like I say, I see it, I see it too often, unfortunately, of orders that arrive and have been waited for months, and then when they get, it's heartbreaking, when it's not right, and you can't, then you kind of, you're stuck having to go through the whole 3 months process again of waiting for the amendments to be made to it. So yeah.
And so for anybody that's unsure as well, do you focus only on jersey, or just mainly on jersey garments?
So yeah, we stick very much to what we know, that our machines are set up for, and that we are doing day in, day out, and that is stretch fabrics, jersey fabrics, so performance, I would say, like leggings, crop tops, tanks, hoodies, joggers, we sometimes do lightweight jackets, anything basically that isn't tailoring and isn't technical. So just casual athleisure fitness, that's our zone of genius, if you like.
And describe to people what your setup actually like physically looks like. So you very kindly gave me a studio tour the other day on video, so I can visualize it, but how would you describe it? You've got the sampling room and the office, and how many sort of machines do you have? And
yeah, sure. So we are in the centre of a suburb of Newcastle upon Tyne called Jesmond. It's a fab place. It's really leafy and green, and I am set up there because Jesmond just has a particular vibe about it, because it's a real mix of students and residents, and that, I think it's a really good creative environment, because the students who come into Northumbria and Newcastle universities are coming from all over the country and all over the world. So they bring with them lots of different trends. They all dress really cool, and it's really inspiring. It's a really inspiring environment. So we're opposite a Starbucks, which is like perfect for just being able to nip over, and there's a lot of independent, like artisan cafes and things around us. So it's just a really nice, inspiring, creative environment for me and my team. So we are in a really nice Victorian terrace building, and we have the top 2 floors. And when you go up the stairs, I have a room which I license out to a company called the Wonderful Wig Company, and Nicola, who operates that business, she specialises in hair loss work. So she works with people that are going through cancer treatment, or who have other medical conditions. So that's lovely. She's got a beautiful little salon within our studio, and it's something that I feel really strongly about, because I lost my dad to lymphoma last year. So it's really nice for me to be able to support her work, because I think it's really valuable what she does. And then We have a boardroom, which is where I work from, and that's where we have the rail of the sample rail with all the clothing on. So when my clients come to meet me, that's where they come to see me. And the walls are covered in sheets of A3 paper with like brainstorming and strategy, and there's lots of sketches and range plans and things like that. So that's my little den in there. And then I have a room at the front of the building which is really bright and light, that we use as a fitness studio. So because my business and my brand AIM is fitness centric, we use that space for classes. So yoga happens there, mixed martial arts happens there, but it's also a great space for my clients to use. So photo shoots, focus groups, launch events and such like as well. And then on the top floor of the building is where the sample room is. So we have the first room you come to is set up as a white room. So it's just all very light. The girls in my team use it for pattern work in there, because there's a table. It's really well lit, so it's good for the kind of detail pattern work. We also are going to start using it for podcasting and vlogging, and it's great for garment photography as well, because it's just a white clear background. So we have the white room, and then you come to the next room, which is the cutting room. So we've got a big cutting table. Underneath it is all the rolls of fabric, and in there is like the block. So a big tall grid with all my AIM cardboard blocks for our patterns. The vinyl cutting machine and heat press are in there for putting the branding on. All the client projects are stored in there. Again, it's really well lit. That looks out onto the front, so you can see into Jesmond from that room. And then the room next door is the sewing room, where all of our industrial machines are set up, and they're set up in pairs. So there's like a chair in between each, so you can swivel from one machine to the other. And that room's filled with loads of thread and, you know, all of the kind of needles. Pins, oh my goodness, pins get everywhere. I'm always going to bring up pins.
Yeah.
It's the thing of my life, pins. I find them everywhere. So we're completely self-contained on that top floor for creating all of the garments and the products.
Incredible. I love it. I really, really want to visit one day.
I'd love you to visit.
Quite far away, but yeah, one day I'll be there for sure. And I know you've shared like a ton of advice already, but what would you say some advice for small businesses who are starting out or looking to get some production made in the UK? Of course, they can come to you, but like, what would you, having been through the process of setting up a brand, like, yeah, what would you share?
So my advice would be to just get really clear before you do anything, before you spend a penny, get really clear on who your audience is, what they want, and how you're going to solve that problem that they have for them. So, you know, just to give you a very real life example, for me with AIM, my customer was like me and my sister, who wanted to have really nice gym gear that looked good, that was aesthetically pleasing, that was fashion led, but we didn't have the disposable income to spend £100 a month on a new pair of leggings. So my problem solving, you know, antidote to that was to get product that looked good, but that I could actually sell and still make a profit on, at an affordable level. So we've settled AIM just under the £50 mark. So nothing that we sell goes beyond £50. So that's what I would always say to my clients. Get really clear, first of all, on what it is that you're doing and who you're selling to, because that will guide everything. That will guide whether you go down a mass production route, because you know that you need to reach your client and your customer via retail stores. So you have to focus on mass production. Or if you know that your consumer is using Instagram, and therefore you really just need to focus first on one hero product and just promote it to death on Instagram to generate your sales, because it just will influence everything. It'll influence your fabrics, it'll influence your marketing, it'll influence your marketing, your manufacturing strategy, the whole works. So get clear on that. And, you know, you are an expert in this. There's lots of online resources as well. But make sure that you have that plan, because again, that's going to be your North Star. You're going to come back to that time and time again. And when you are pitching to banks or pitching to investors, or even just pitching to your family and your friends to support you, that is what you need to be really clear on, who it is that's going to buy this product. And then, as we've discussed, demonstrate that they want it. So before you even progress, make sure that they agree with you and that what the problem that you're solving actually exists.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I'm very glad that I've met you for sure, and that we're spreading the same message, north and south. So where could people find you? What's the best way to get in touch if they are looking to get some samples developed, or they just want to have a chat about like potentially working together?
Sure. Well, my website for the brand is aimathleisure.com. So that's AIMATHLEISURE, aimathleisure.com. So you can go on there, and there's a selection of my products on there. Because the majority of my work is business to business, I'm not focused predominantly on business to consumer. There's just a selection of the products on aimathleisure.com, but it will give you a guide and a vibe to the sort of product that we produce. So you can message me via there. My email address is on that website as well. Or I'm really active on my personal Instagram, which is Amy Fettis, AMYFETTIS, and that I use, you know, to interact with my clients. And then if we do kind of get into a chat, normally WhatsApp. So, you know, I'll give you my mobile number, and we can use WhatsApp, because that's the best way to share pictures and images and just discuss things.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm really, really glad that I met you. And
likewise.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch. We were obviously meant to meet in person today, but we'll do it on Skype or Zoom or whatever. And yeah, I'm sure we'll meet one day.
Yeah, well, definitely. And you are welcome at Studio 54 anytime. It would be a pleasure to welcome you there.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you have 1 minute spare, it would mean the world to me if you could head over to Apple Podcasts to leave a short review, so that more people can discover the podcast and listen to interviews with inspiring guests in the fashion industry. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you join me for the next episode.